Hi, I'm Betsy Loring. My husband Doug Loring and I run Natural Warrior Farm and Herbs. And I am here today to share a little bit about some of the basic care that you will use for your plants in your raised beds or your direct till gardens. So plants have a few basic needs to think about. We know our plants need good soil, they need plenty of water, lots of sunlight, and air. The air is actually a source of nutrition for the plants. They are able to take nitrogen out of the air. The wind flow helps keep them strong and healthy. Not one we think about a lot, but it is good to make sure you have plenty of circulation. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about how you're going to water those garden plants. Each plant has different watering needs, but every plant is going to be better off if you water very deeply so that the roots can spread down into the earth rather than frequently and shallow. It's best to water in the mornings or the evenings. That cold water during the heat of the day will cause stress on your plant. So you want to go ahead and make sure you pick a time, stay consistent either morning or evening. Focus on watering on the roots rather than the foliage. When you get water up on those leaves when you're watering, a couple things happen. One is you can cause sunburn on the leaves, so that water is actually reflecting the UV light and it will sunburn the plants. You also open up that plant to being susceptible to certain diseases like blights and molds that will grow on the leaf when that water sits on it. So go ahead and try to focus on watering deeply on the roots. Choose a time of day, morning or evening. And it's okay to let those plants dry out in between waterings. There is such a thing as overwatering. So go ahead and before you choose to water, test your soil. See, is it deep? Or is it wet? And how deep is it wet? If you're a little dry on the surface, but you have a moisture a couple inches down in that soil, you might want to hold off on watering. The other variable in that is what's your weather like? On a really windy day, that's going to dry that plant out. If you know that day is going to be windy and you're a little moist, give it a little more water. That wind's going to dry out that ground and suck moisture off those leaves really quickly. Or if you know a hot day is coming, give them good water in the morning before the hot day. You might see your plant wilting through the heat of the day, and you'll be tempted to water it, but don't give it water during that heat. You gave it good water in the morning, let it wait it out. It should revive by evening. Just like us wilting when it's hot or sweating and wanting to come inside, your plant's just trying to survive the heat and will come back. It'll be okay. So every plant has different needs in that garden, so you want to remember that your peppermints and your elderberry are wanting more water. So go ahead and give them that little bit of extra water. Then your sage, your rose, your yarrow, those are prairie plants. They're not mountain plants, so they are in an ecosystem that's not using as much water, so you don't have to keep them as moist. So again, just test your soil every time before you water. Adjust to those plant needs, knowing that the peppermints, including then the monocopi, which is part of the peppermint family, and the elderberry are wanting extra water, and your prairie plants can use a little bit less. Here is a quick reminder of the steps or the basics of your watering needs. Soak deeply to your roots. Water in the morning or the evening. Try not to water the foliage. Test your soil before you water. And remember, it's okay to let the soil dry some. You can overwater, especially in a raised bed that's a contained system. So another way to help retain that water in your garden and hold weeds back and build good soil is using mulch. Mulching is a process gardeners use where they lay an organic material around the plant that they're growing. That could be straw, it could be wood chips, dry leaves, or even grass clippings from a lawn. You will lay those around the base of your plant, and that's going to do a few things. It's going to hold the water into the soil, so you have to water less frequently. It's going to help keep weeds from growing up around your plants. And as it breaks down, that's actually going to become soil. So in following years, your mulch will decompose and become new good earth for your plant to grow in. The mulch will help hold weeds back, but weeding is something you're going to need to do to take care of your plants. What the weeds are going to do, if you allow them to grow, is they're robbing moisture, nutrients, and sunlight from the plant that you're trying to grow. So you want to give your plant the competitive advantage. Mulching will help keep those weeds down, but you'll still need to go out and regularly check. It's easiest to pull those weeds when they're tiny and just coming up. If you wait till they get bigger, you're going to have a bigger battle. So go ahead and take the time to go check your gardens, weed around the plants that you're growing. Plants also need fertilizer to grow. So those are the nutrients that are built into the soil. Now we made a choice when building the raised beds to buy soil that already has fertilizer in it. It's a nice organic compound that's going to break down and feed your plants continuously through this growing season. If you chose a direct till garden, you can side dress with a compost or an aged manure, but remember to only side dress. What that means is you're not going to let that touch your plant. You're just going to leave it around the soil and a perimeter around that plant so that it'll slowly decay into the ground. In the fall, when you're done growing, you have your mulch, and you can also add compost in those raised beds so that it can break down for the following year. In year 2, you can gently take your rake, stir that mulch and compost into that ground, and provide continuing nutrition. It's best to use an organic nutrition source. We don't want to contaminate our tea herbs with chemical and synthetic products. So by continuing to build natural, organic materials into our ground, we can continue to feed those plants, keep them healthy and happy, and keep us healthy and happy. The last thing we want to just think about really quickly when we're taking care of our plants is how we're going to protect it from our enemies that might hurt our plants. And there's many that we have to think about. Some are basics like having dogs, kids, cats, mice, gophers, animals who might come in and dig or ruin that garden. So it's worth taking a little bit of time to think about ways that you're going to secure your garden space. You might need to put some wire around, some deer netting, or hopefully in the end think about having a fence that's going to keep your garden space safe. It's really frustrating to put a lot of time and love into the plants and then have something come kill it or ruin it for you. The other thing is there are natural pests and diseases that will affect our plants. The best defense is to keep a healthy plant. Keep it well watered, make sure it's getting the nutrients it needs, make sure it's protected. And so you want to also keep track and just watch that plant. If you start seeing yellowing, bugs, changing colors on those leaves, you want to take action right away. Try to figure out what's going on with the plant and then adjust as needed. There's not a lot of natural enemies to your tea herb plants. They're all pretty hardy and do well in this ecosystem. If you do have problems or you notice something coming in, you can use good old Google. There's a lot of information on the internet. Or you can reach out to Danielle or myself, and we're happy to come take a look at those gardens and help you deal with whatever pests or diseases that might arise. Those are your basic plant care needs. You want to watch for pests and diseases and other animals and critters that might hurt your garden. You want to know that they're well fed, well watered, and getting plenty of good sun and air. Again, thank you for trying to do your tea gardens this year, and joining us for this workshop. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betsy, for doing our Growing Basics workshop. It was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I hope that you all learned a lot. Everyone is new to their garden and to their plants, so this is our intro to how to care for those plants. And last week you learned the cultural significance of these plants. I just ask that you please hit the like button below so that I know that you watched the video. And thank you so much. And look out for the next video.